Welcome to Post-Effect.
The Business of Benefits is your no BS, no sales guide to real solutions.
No gimmicks, just the truth about how to take control, transform your benefits, and care for your most valuable asset, your people.
If you're tired of the same old sales pitch and you're ready to rethink your benefits, this podcast is for you. The truth is out there. Are you ready to hear it? Hey everybody, welcome to the Business of Benefits. I'm your host, Chelsea Reikus. Today, we've got part 2, which is all about the employee experience. So those fear tactics that maybe you've been hearing, what are they actually like in real life? So check it out. Let us know what you think. So other things that we've covered the financials pretty well, feasibility, the dual option I think was a really great thing for us to cover for employers. Is there anything else before we really focus on what goes wrong? And I say wrong with air quotes again, because it's a smaller problem than the problems you've been facing in the past, having no control over your health plan. But before we dive into challenges, do you have anything else you want to say about reference-based pricing?
I think we can jump into challenges because I think that's going to be really meaningful for people. Yeah.
I'd like to start with the typical one that we kind of just explained, which is
access.
My doctor doesn't take this.
Yeah.
What is ClaimDoc's general approach to that? And by the way, I will tell you, our provider acceptance rate in the groups that we have with you guys is 97, 98%. So
thank you.
There's only, and that's with with all the groups, thousands and thousands of employees, 2% of providers aren't willing to pay our plan. That's not bad.
And those providers are probably chiropractors, homeopathic medical providers. So I'll tell you, for us with ClaimDoc, we have 96.4% acceptance nationally.
Okay.
Last year, we had members nominate providers, meaning that members of our plan asked us to call over 24,000 providers that we did not already have relationships with, and in that exercise we got over 96% of them that were willing to accept our plan to send us claims. Part of that is because we pay providers quickly. The other part of it is that we have a provider relations team that's led by a former CEO of a hospital. So he is a hospital administrator by trade, and so he speaks that language, and he also helps keep us humble and understanding how we need to meet hospital systems where they are. Everybody has everybody has a P&L, a profit and loss statement. We don't want to be adversarial. And that's why we do have such good success with access. Some of our predecessors, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, some of our predecessors historically have essentially force their members into facilities, and then when those members subsequently get balance billed, they get sued. Hospital systems end up in court, members end up in court. That's not our bag. We're not doing that.
Nobody wants that. And to your point, the adversary thing, I think that's really important to note, because there's I hate this saying, multiple ways to skin a cat, but
sure.
There are multiple ways that reference-based pricing can be implemented, and depending on the vendors that you're choosing, some are more aggressive than others. And
also, who's ever skinned a cat?
Yeah.
Can we just
so that's why I think the saying is ridiculous. It's
yeah, right.
What?
Do we all just go out skinning cats?
Yeah, no, thank you. Cats are great. But I forget what
Sorry, I made you lose your train of thought. My bad.
No, it's fine. I'm never going to forget this. So let's talk a little bit then, the adversary comment.
Yeah, the adversarial component.
And I think to make that super clear, it's you could work with a vendor that's super aggressive and not going to pay, just really, really aggressive, or you could work with somebody that understands that the most important thing is just getting the job done in a fair and reasonable and quickly, that's kind of
quick manner.
Yeah.
Well, and conversely too though. So the way we look at it, there's a little bit of a spectrum, right? You don't want to be this hard ass, we're only going to pay you 125% of Medicare and that's it, or else we're going to take you to court and that's it. There's also the other side of the spectrum, which we also don't prescribe to, which is, oh, you want 300% of Medicare, 400%? Okay, well, we're just going to pay that to make it go away because we don't really want to get into a skirmish with you. And like at that point, if you're paying 400% of Medicare, you might as well just hire UHC because like that's it. You know what I mean? Like you're going to land at the same reimbursement. So I think we do a really good job. And again, I just have to shout out our provider relations team of like driving in the middle, right? Like we're not going to be these people that want to sue the shit out of you for not taking our reimbursement, but we also don't want to lay down
Yes.
and be
We're
like,
not going to get
okay,
walked
it's
on.
fine.
We're not a PPO.
Right. Right.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So the next thing that I hear a lot about, so it's access, right? And
Yep.
one thing I wanted to mention about the program that you were talking about of calling 24,000 providers, preemptively, making sure that they will take payment or they will pay the plan and take payment from the plan. The thing that I find really important when we're like rolling this out is best practice is to roll out this program before open enrollment, before
Absolutely.
everybody's using the new plan. And then you have this influx of people who feel like, oh, well, my doctors aren't in network, blah, blah, blah. Do this way ahead. It gives you an opportunity to educate employees about what you're doing and why you're doing it. And hey, help us build out our new network or however you want to phrase it to them. I know
Frame it, yeah.
network's a not friendly word necessarily to use with this, but
It's fine.
it helps in understanding in those first couple meetings with employees if you say like, you don't have a network, but if you would want us to make sure that your provider will be accepted, like we can build that out for you. And
Yeah.
I think preemptively doing that is such a game changer for the
Huge.
noise component.
Dude, I'll tell you. So like we at ClaimDoc right now, we make 10 outbound phone calls for every one that we get inbound from a provider. So we spend a ton of time and energy meeting the provider community where they are. And that typically, to your point, we start 60 days prior to the open enrollment effective date is when we start that pave the way process. We always prioritize people with actual appointment dates. So for example, like if someone's going to give birth a month after the plan goes live, then we're going to start there. And then we kind of, funnel down into this is my kid's pediatrician. This is my allergist. We get to that soon before the effective date, but those we prioritize based on timing. But yeah, it's a huge part of our solution. And if you're gonna go about doing something I hate to use the word disruptive. If you're gonna go about reference-based pricing, you have to do the work, right? Like to our point earlier, you have to do that homework. And also too, just to be clear, like we do all of that at ClaimDoc before we ever get paid a dime.
Yes, that's actually us as well. Because we're also not getting paid until after the plan is implemented with the monthly fee, right? So, if you're working with, that's a really good point. I don't think a lot of employers realize that, like all this preemptive work prior to renewal, if you are coming on for the first time, like that's unpaid work.
That's on us.
Which is
okay.
That's
on us.
But
that's a lot of money.
Yeah. But I think it's an investment it's believing, it's walking the walk, right? It's
totally.
It's like this is the path that we've chosen. This is the business model that we've chosen, and there's pros and there's cons to it. But I believe so wholeheartedly in it that I'll sacrifice if we need to for a few months just to give you the confidence that you need to know that this works, right?
Yeah, totally.
Let's talk balance bills. What is it?
Okay.
And how does it work?
Yeah, so a balance bill, we're all pretty familiar with it if you are a consumer of things even as innocuous as dental insurance. If you pay car insurance, you probably have some idea of this. So a balance bill is essentially when a provider gets a reimbursement from insurance or from the employer plan and they think it's inadequate. Let's go back to the knee surgery, for example. The employer sends their $40,000 reimbursement, whatever it is, and for some reason or another, the hospital says, nope, that's inadequate. What they often do is they'll go around the employer insurance plan and go straight to the member and say, hey, you owe me X number of dollars because your benefit plan, your insurance plan didn't pay me
cover
adequately. Didn't cover it.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, and that situation happens on network plans too.
Oh, yeah.
I always like to clarify that, that United Healthcare, Anthem, Cigna, Aetna, doesn't matter who you have. That already happens about 8% of the time. 8% of claims on major BUCA carriers. When I say BUCA, I'm referring to Blue Cross, United, Humana, and Aetna specifically. That's an industry term. I just wanted to make sure I defined. But on a BUCA plan, there are still balance bills that happen about 8% of the time on claims. And employees often don't really know better, so they tend to pay them, or they ignore them and they end up in
Collections.
credit and credit impairments and what have you. Reference-based pricing has been historically pretty notorious for creating more balance bills on healthcare plans because of the repayment and the reimbursement structure, which is less than what hospitals would like to see historically. I will say in the more modern RBP times, there are many ways that we work around this. At ClaimDoc, the way we do it is that we work around it because we have a provider relations team. Nationally, our balance bill rate right now is less than 1%. So we do better because of our outreach to providers, because of our consistent commitment to partnerships with healthcare providers all over the country. That's why we see that. But historically, if somebody comes and says, "Oh, you don't want to do reference-based pricing because of balance bills," that's a scare tactic, is what I call it. Because if you're using a good partner who's being judicious about that, that's not really actually a thing. It's sort of it's the boogeyman in the closet of how reference-based pricing works. I will clarify, for ClaimDocs, in our purposes, we will go after, I say go after, let me rephrase. At ClaimDoc, we contact a provider after the first balance bill as long as we know about it, right? So employees have to open their mail. If you have a man-child on your employee plan that doesn't open their mail and they get a balance bill and subsequently a credit impairment, that was going to happen anyway. So I don't know what to tell you about that, right? But as long as we know about a balance bill, we will always intervene immediately and connect with the provider and come to an agreement and get that settled so that it goes away. Something else that we do as well is we'll go connect with state attorneys general to reverse credit impairments if that happens on our watch, right? So even if it was because bro didn't open his mail and now he's got 3 balance bills and the credit's impaired, we'll still go back and repair that because it's the right thing to do. And furthermore, it's illegal to impair someone's credit because of a medical bill, and it has been for many years. So balance billing, it is still a talking point, but I love talking about it because I do think it's important to recognize that these things happen. But I would call that almost more of like an open employee benefits concept than an RBP concept. If people are getting bills and they're not opening their mail, they're not paying their bills, they're going to get balance bills, they're going to get credit impairment. That happens anyway.
And there's
right?
no protections under like a traditional BUCA plan. There's not going to be any protections for the employee whatsoever. But if you're working with somebody like ClaimDoc that takes on like literally like a co-fiduciary status, and I don't know exactly what your policy is, but I know it's far superior in the industry in terms of the protections that you're willing to give employees and how far you'll go to protect them.
Yeah, and you use the word, it's co-fiduciary, right? So if you're an employer and you're offering a healthcare plan and you're choosing to self-fund, that means you're going to pay your claims, right? You're subject to ERISA. You're going to essentially take on the role of the insurance company. When you partner with us at ClaimDoc, we come on as your co-fiduciary, which means if you're getting sued because of something, we're getting sued too. And that's an incredible amount of responsibility that we take very seriously. So, we don't have clients that get sued very often.
No. And like in the 10 years that we've been doing this, there's never been like anything that got to that point. We've had balance bills, obviously. We calculated it over, the span of the last decade, less than 2%. Way less. It's like 1.5. So right in line with your book of business. And most of them are small. And here's the other thing.
Yeah.
If there's a situation, like if there's something blows up, right? And it's a hospital bill, like they're just not willing to negotiate. It's $50,000, maybe 60, like that sucks. But if it's once in a few years and you have to eat it. Just like that. That's how we kind of go through these processes. It's like, how many times did we win right? Like if we've been billed 20 million, we've paid 6. Like if we have to pay what,
Girl,
if we're going to lose once, we're going to lose. And I hope it's
a
50.
marriage.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's a marriage, right? Like
Yeah.
like there are times where you're going to win and there are times where you have to clean the litter box and
Yes.
like it is what it is, right?
Skin
like
cats.
So like, yeah, that's totally, thanks for bringing that up. That's a very valid point,
You
for
know,
sure.
and yeah, I find it so interesting. Some of the feedback that we hear, or the rebuttals, if you will, of like, well, we were told that this. Okay, so we did balance bills, we did access. What else do you hear as a main challenge of reference-based pricing?
You know, I think for the employers listening out there, I do think that if you know, just to speak directly to the population, I think if you go to your broker and you say, listen, I heard on this podcast about reference-based pricing, and I'm really interested in investigating this. If your broker says to you, you know, no, or it doesn't work here, or something like that, I would challenge them. And then I would also start to interview other brokers, because I said this yesterday. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. And yesterday I gave CE, continuing education for licensed insurance professionals in the state of Tennessee, on reference-based pricing. And my closing remarks were the same. I said, if you're out in the market selling against reference-based pricing, now in 2025, you're just starting to look ignorant. And so if you're willing to do it, and especially if you've never done it before, right? So if you're an employer that's interested in the savings, you want a really great member experience, you know, ClaimDoc, I know we're the gold standard, and I can say that because I wrote reference-based pricing for 15 years as a broker, and I came to ClaimDoc because I'm so deeply passionate about the depth and breadth of our experience for members and our savings. So if you want to do it, you know, ask the questions of your broker consultant and see what they say. And if they start to act reticent, or they're trying to tell a story or provide a narrative without any actual experience writing it themselves, I would call that an immediately fireable offense. If they're willing to say, I don't know, let's investigate, let's interview a few, you know, great. That means you have a partner that's willing to strategize, learn, listen. That's a good partner. But I think as an employer, you know, you have to look at reference-based pricing as a feasible way to manage healthcare trend. And I'll tell you, the biggest success story, I love to tell this story. When I was a broker in Indy, I had a race team, and it was, let's see, I want to say it was like 120 people on the plan. And I wrote them on a reference-based pricing plan in 2015, 14 or 15. And to this day, they have 0% increase year to year. None. Zero.
That's amazing.
That's on a race team. Okay. So these aren't computer, you know, these aren't office people.
This isn't low risk. Yeah.
Yeah. This is a high risk population, and they've maintained, they're not my client anymore because I'm no longer on the broker side. But they've maintained that for several years. And so I think you have to seriously evaluate that type of outcome if you're an employer. And if you're going to do it and your broker is being reticent about it, they're pushing back and they're making up horror stories.
Red flag. Giant red flag. The other thing, you know, and you made a comment about, you know, maybe your broker isn't super familiar with these strategies, but they're at least willing to look at it. That's huge. I mean,
totally.
I mean, actually, let me rephrase. I think that's the bare minimum, but
amen.
Right?
You said it,
Let's
girl.
just call it as it is. Like that's yay, you're doing your job.
Yeah.
I have said this so many times. I feel like people in this industry can be incredibly overcompensated for mediocrity.
Absolutely.
Right. But
say it again, louder for the people in the back. Rewind and hear it again.
Right. But I think something that's interesting to point out is I wouldn't want to do, if I was an employer listening to this, I wouldn't really want to do reference-based pricing with a broker partner that hasn't done it before. Unless, you know, they're going to work hand in hand with somebody like Danielle's team that can really take on the bulk of that work for them. But I will tell you, most of the times when I've seen that it doesn't work, it's because the wrong account management team, like Danielle kind of alluded to earlier, like there's conversations that need to be had. There's a finesse. I mean, It's just a
Yeah.
completely different business model. So consider like a co-consulting. We've been approached
Yep.
for that a lot in the last few years. Hey, I love my broker. They're trying to do what's best for me. We feel like we're mostly meeting our fiduciary obligations with them. They don't, they're not pulling any wool over our eyes, but they don't
Right.
know how to do this. Like, can you
Right.
teach them? Sure. Or
Yeah.
can you teach us? Sure.
Yeah.
We charge a fee. We teach you how to do it. You keep your broker. That's fine. It's less about who's doing it and more about like it being done right.
Absolutely. Yes. Amen. It's about getting it right the first time,
Yes.
right? That's what I say to people about reference-based pricing. The most important thing is to do it right the first time. I didn't do it right the first time, right? I didn't use ClaimDoc the first time. And
We've all got
that
a
was 15
story.
years ago.
Yeah.
We've all got,
Yeah.
Everyone
all got
who's
one.
done it,
For
everyone
sure.
who's done RBP has a horror story for sure.
And you learn from it. And then you don't fuck up the same way.
You don't. You fucked around, you found out,
Yes.
and then you readjusted, and then you got a better partner, and like, yeah, totally. And like, I think too, something that's important for the employer community here is that the average age of a group insurance broker consultant is 59.
That's terrifying.
Average. Okay. We're not talking about top end here.
No.
Okay. We're talking about the average is 59. And reference-based pricing is in its modern context is only about 15 years old, maybe 20, right? So of course the community is a little slow to roll it out, right? Like, of course there's going to be this reticence, this stubbornness about it. Of course they're going to sell against it because for the last 59 years, whatever, how many years they've been selling fully insured products and making a boatload of money with very little work.
Exactly. It's so nice to hear other people say these things, because when you are one yourself that's, doing it differently, nonetheless, it's still, I don't love the look of it of like, but for someone in your position to be able to like call it out that way, I hope it lands even more with employers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're reaching a turning point, and like, this is another, sorry, it's not Sunday, but here's a sermon for you, like, another thing that I think is really important for employers to hear is that the number one lobby in American politics is healthcare, right? We spend more as a country on lobbying for healthcare than any other lobby, period. That includes pharmaceuticals, by the way. So that incorporates a large chunk of it. But, we haven't seen any significant betterment progress through legislation, since the creation of Medicare and Medicaid. Now I will say, ACA was a good swipe. Like, I think, yeah. Well, the ACA and CAA, both very important pieces of legislation. ACA, Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, 2010, and then the CAA after COVID. Under the Trump administration, the Consolidated Appropriations Act. Those are both very important pieces of legislation that are bettering our community. But really, what's going to change the tide is employer plans.
For sure.
Like, the power sits in the employer plan. The employer-sponsored healthcare plan space is how we're going to change the way that the middle-class American experiences healthcare in this country.
One employer at a time. That's
One
it.
employer at a time. And all we have to do is collect them, right? Like, we have to collect enough employers with enough collective gravity to really change it. But that's something that we're really passionate about here at ClaimDoc, is making sure that we are continuing to collect the type of employer that understands that the responsibility lies in their hands. It's not going to happen with the government's change. It's not personal, and it's not personal responsibility change. Like, it's like recycling, right? Like, we can recycle, but until like the big guys recycle,
doesn't matter.
It doesn't really matter.
Right.
It's a drop in the bucket. So I think the employers, really hold the power, and I encourage them to harness that, because I think that's going to be the real impetus of change in our 100%.
Country. I'm going to split this show up into 2 episodes, and the first part will be like, what is RBP? And then the second part's going to be member experience.
Sorry.
No, why are you sorry? No, this is perfect. I'm so glad. What I want to do is, do you want to add anything to the first part or the second part, and then we can close out?
I don't I don't think so. Unless you think there's something that's been left unaddressed.
I think the only thing maybe we should chat about is, and I know this isn't necessarily on your end, it's more maybe on the consultant end, but the importance of a ongoing communication strategy and how often that's
Yeah.
overlooked. Do you have any comments from your
Yeah.
perspective on that?
Yeah. So, of course, when you're going to implement something like reference-based pricing, there has to be a good lead time to make sure that there's adequate planning, strategizing, and every employee population is different, right? So you as the employer understand whether your people get more value out of a flyer in the break room versus a text or versus the internal intranet or whatever. So there has to be some strategy that's really thought through around how do we reach people. But that should certainly start no less than 60 days before the plan year. I say 60 days because that's also kind of where that coincides with our pave the way process at ClaimDoc. But furthermore, we like to see quarterly communications with employees. We all know, you and I know, Chelsea, because we've both been on like the advisor side, but we know that 20% of employees incur 80% of the claims, right? So that 20% is going to get engaged early and often. But that leaves the other 80%. What happens when Bobby goes and breaks his arm playing baseball on Saturday, right? Like what happens when Carol gets a cancer diagnosis no one expects, right? Like what happens then is ideally they've communicated or they've heard at least a little bit, right, from their benefits consultant, from their employer, from their ClaimDoc member advocate, and they know what to do, right? People don't learn and retain information about their employee benefits program because it's yucky. It sucks. It gets 8% more expensive every year. No one knows how it works. So people avoid it because it's
until they have to engage.
Yes.
Yeah. So something we do, and I love that. I think quarterly makes a lot of sense. At the very least, especially if it's something that like ClaimDoc is kind of spearheading, right? Like as a vendor. But I think advisors and employers hold your advisors to this. Remember, employers, what Danielle just said, like you have all the control. You control how much your advisors make, even if they tell you otherwise. You control everything. You could like the power is in your hands. But nonetheless, we will do 2 communications a month targeted. One might be and one will be reference-based pricing, and it's only going to go to those that are in the reference-based pricing plan. And it might be like how to handle provider objections, or it might be, did you get a bill? You want us to review it? We brand, and then the other text will be something about other benefits, like file your wellness benefits on your accident plan, like something more fluffy and easy. Because you can't just hit them with like serious stuff all the time. Or like dental cleaning reminders, stuff like that, right? Like fluffy. And it goes to, exactly. But what's really interesting is when you send those messages out, if you have a good marketing team that knows how to craft engaging subject lines, they can make cool graphics so it's not just like boring insurance shit, but it's actually engaging. They're going to open it and you include dependents. So the very first text message that we send out after before open enrollment is is your spouse going to be involved in your benefit decisions this year or your dependents? If so, respond with their name and their number and they can get communications, they can enroll and you don't have to fight about it. Yeah, and they love that. So then we have all the dependents. After open enrollment, we see who's been enrolled, who's not. We take them off of the list, obviously. And then we hit them with this information throughout the year too. So when it's their time of need, they literally open up their text messages and they already have been talking to us. Maybe they didn't respond, but we've been talking to them twice a month for 12 months. So they will be like, hey, I need a OBGYN appointment. Hey, I just got this scary diagnosis. Can somebody help me? If you check out, we brand this program too to clients. So for the one that I'm speaking on stage with next week, a ClaimDoc client, they're called Kalo Services. Their internal advocacy, like ethos program is called Care Coach. And it has spread like wildfire over the last 2 years through the company that if you need anything, you just call the Care Coach. And they love it. And if you look at our Google reviews, there's employees talking about care coach as if it's like this real thing. I mean,
right.
it is, but
it is a thing.
We made it up and it works really, really well. So
Yeah.
those are the types of things where it's like, a lot of people think that when you're an advisor, a broker, or consultant, like you bring in quotes or you bring in proposals. That is not the case. Like I firmly believe 90% of what we do is strategic communications.
Totally.
Especially when you're doing reference-based pricing. But a structured communications plan, if twice a month seems too hefty for your population, sometimes we go down to once a month. And again, it's targeted. Not everybody's getting it if they're not in the certain plans, but it's so proactive, especially when you have like direct primary care with reference-based pricing. That's a whole other conversation. We
love DPC.
I figured you would.
Yeah. Yeah. We have it on our own plan. I mean, all of our employees, I'm on the ClaimDoc plan. We practice what we preach, right? Like, and I do want to ask you before we get done, I want to know more about this text campaign because I think we really need to like integrate that into how we communicate. And another thing I also wanted to clarify too, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier or not, is that we will also partner with your consultant to train their account staff.
Cool. That's amazing.
We're piloting that program. Yeah, we're working on building that out.
Well, that's so good. That's exactly what the brokerages need that don't understand this stuff. That's incredible.
I mean, in reality, they should just hire a firm like yours, like Ethos, so that they already have people that know how to do it. But because the broker community is aging so quickly, and the account staff that supports them tend to be newer to the industry or only have exclusively fully insured experience, I felt really passionately that we need to educate in a better way. So we started piloting that too. But, I think communication is huge. It is everything.
It is the crux to whether your reference-based pricing plan will be successful or not. We've literally been hired just to create communication plans for employers that are doing reference-based pricing. Yeah.
Are you serious?
Swear to God.
You became a communications company on top of a brokerage.
I know. I mean, it's not like my ideal working relationship. I'd prefer to just like manage and measure and kick ass at the whole thing. But, if that's the only place, usually it's my brother's the broker or it's something like that where it's like a relationship that
it's like a tangential sort of like
right. Which if we're talking about fiduciary obligation, that's a whole other conversation, and that's not a good enough of a reason to have somebody on your team. But I digress. All right, this was so fun. Where can our listeners learn more about ClaimDoc and more about you?
Oh my gosh, yeah, no, this was a blast. Thank you so much. So much respect for what you guys are doing down there. So you can check out our website. It's ClaimDoc.com. Danielle Young. I'm on LinkedIn. If you go on LinkedIn and search Danielle Young, my tagline is RBP. I like to educate RBP buyers. And I mean that. I really do think, if you're an employer and you want to look at this, you have to know what questions to ask, and you really need to dig in and don't treat it like buying a car. Treat it like buying a house.
I like that.
You really need to get into it, and I'm happy to help, even if you don't buy from us. I just, I'm kind of the attitude, and maybe I'm different than some of our competitors, or some of my compatriots, even at ClaimDoc, because we're competitive here. But my attitude is a rising tide raises all the ships, right? So every successful reference-based pricing case, even if it's not with us, is a success for the employer, the employee, and for American healthcare and the status in general. So, even if you're not comfortable buying from us or whatever, I don't care. Call me, text me, get with me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to answer questions.
You are speaking my language. The greatest gift that I think we can give with the work that we do is through these types of moments of just pure education.
Totally.
And eventually that builds up enough trust to warrant, the roles that we're in now and the success that we've had, but it comes first and foremost from a desire to lift others and educate. So couldn't agree more. Thank you again for being on the show. And we'll have to have you back because, clearly you and I can talk. So